Gary Mark Gilmore was born on December 4, 1940 in Waco, Texas, the second of four sons born to Frank and Bessie Gilmore. His execution put an end to a de facto statewide ban on the death penalty that had lasted almost 10 years. Gilmore's father frequently beat him when he was a child. Frank's mother claimed that he was the illegitimate son of magician Harry Houdini, who rejected his paternity. Nobody believed this, but his father did. The family moved to Portland, Oregon in 1948 after years of travel. Gilmore was intelligent and talented in the arts, but he started acting dangerously at a young age. He was sent to McLaren's Reform School for Boys in Woodburn, Oregon after robbing a car when he was just 14 years old. After being freed a year later, he went back to his illegal ways. He was detained at the Oregon State Correctional Institution between 1960 and 1961 on a larceny charge. He was stopped in 1962 in Vancouver, Washington for operating a vehicle while intoxicated and without a license, and as a result, he received a jail term at Rocky Butte Jail in Portland. Gilmore was given a 15-year prison term in 1964 for assault and armed robbery. He committed an armed robbery in Portland after being released from Oregon State Penitentiary in 1972 to go back to school. Gilmore was a prisoner in Oregon who constantly caused problems for his guards. He was given the antipsychotic medication Prolixin to treat his condition, and in January 1975, they managed to arrange for his transfer to the federal penitentiary in Marion, Illinois, which at the time was a maximum security prison. On April 9, 1976, Gilmore received his parole from Marion and was handed over to his cousin Brenda Nicol, who resided in Provo, Utah. Gilmore was given a job by Nicol in her father Nicol D'Amico's shoe repair business. He also worked for an insulation business, and he soon started dating Nicole Baker Barrett, then 19 years old. Gilmore, though, persisted in his small-time criminal behavior and heavy drinking. After dating for a while, Barrett broke up with him because she was scared of his violent outbursts. Soon after, Gilmore started his murderous rampage. Max Jensen reported for duty at the self-service gas station in Orem, Utah on Monday, July 19, 1976, as normal. That evening, Gilmore argued with his girlfriend and went out drinking with April, her younger, emotionally unstable sister. He informed April that he needed to make a phone call at 10:30 p.m. He walked away after leaving her inside the truck. Gilmore entered the Sinclair fuel station after turning the corner and vanishing from her line of sight. He quickly realized there was nobody else in the area after spotting the only attendant. He approached Max Jensen while brandishing a .22 Browning automatic. He told Jensen to take everything out of his pockets, which the young Mormon did without delay. Then he instructed Jensen to enter the restroom and lie on the floor with his arms tucked under him. Jensen assumed the role. He was following all of Gilmore's instructions, yet Gilmore abruptly brought the rifle up to Jensen's head. He said, "This one is for me," and then he shot. Then, with the gun directly against Jensen's skull, he fired another shot at him, this time for Nicole. Gilmore stayed at the night in a motel with April before checking into the City Center Motel in Provo, which is close to Brigham Young University, the next night. Ben Bushnell, the attendant, and his wife and infant lived on the property. Ben was instructed by Gilmore to hand up the cash box and sit on the ground. Then he fired his weapon at Bushnell. Gilmore seized the cash box and departed as Bushnell's wife entered. Gilmore accidentally shot himself in the hand while trying to get rid of the rifle in a nearby bush. By Wednesday, Gilmore had been given up to the police by his cousin Brenda Nicol. Without a struggle, he gave up close to a roadblock. He initially denied the murders, but eventually confessed to both. Due to the particularly compelling evidence in that case, Gilmore was only charged with killing Bushnell. Only 11 weeks had passed since the murder before the trial started, and it only lasted 3 days. Gilmore tried to persuade the jury that he had done the crimes while he was insane, but on October 7th he was found guilty and given the death penalty. Since the U.S. Supreme Court reintroduced the death sentence nationwide on July 2nd, he had only recently been subject to the death penalty. Death penalty opponents and the media both made Gilmore a household name over the final 3 months of his life. With his open declaration of desire to die, Gilmore himself confused people who were raising questions about the validity of the new Utah death sentence law. He engaged in a hunger strike during this period and made 2 suicide attempts. Originally scheduled for November 15, 1976, the execution date was postponed twice. The U.S. Supreme Court heard a request for a stay of execution brought on behalf of Gilmore's mother and decided on December 13 that the execution could go on. Gilmore had received a lot of medication the night before he was scheduled to be executed. He was happy when his relatives came to visit. His uncle acknowledged bringing him some whiskey, which Gilmore sipped on. Then Johnny Cash, one of his favorite musicians, called and sang for him. Gilmore attempted to join him in the song. Then he recorded a message for Nicole in which he begged her to consider suicide as a favor for him. Gilmore believed his death had been postponed a third time for 5 hours and 20 minutes. He learned of the stay through a live broadcast account of a press conference delivered by Warden Sam Smith at 2:20 a.m. Gilmore had spent 18 of his 36 years in prison. He erupted, angry at the judge, and repeatedly telling the civil rights appellants to keep out of his life. The warden of the Utah State Prison entered his chamber just 4 minutes before the scheduled time, 7:49 a.m., or sunrise, and informed him that the death punishment will be carried out. He was fastened to an oak chair with a black upholstery. He stood in front of a canvas cubicle with 5 tiny slots and a weapon sticking out of each one, roughly 8 yards away, with a black hood over his head and white target over his heart. Larry Schiller, one of the 4 official witnesses to Gilmore's execution, provided a detailed account of how the warden distributed coffee cups while Gilmore was being prepared in the chair during a press conference held inside the jail. 5 men opened fire. 1 man had the customary blank in his gun when hunting rifles were fired at the white target over his heart. Then, dozens of journalists were given a tour of the location, which is located 20 miles south of Salt Lake City, on a salt flat flanked by imposing snow-capped mountains. As they looked at the bloodstains, an ambulance was taking the corpse to the hospital so that the deceased man's organs could be removed for transplant, as per his wish. Gilmore opted to be executed by firing squad, an unusual execution technique that is not permitted in most jurisdictions. His final command to the executioners, "Let's do it," became a famous quotation. Gilmore's passing did not immediately result in a spike in executions. Only 5 more convicts had been executed by the end of 1982, and 3 of them, like Gilmore, had voluntarily abandoned their appeals. Michael Gilmore, the younger brother of Gilmore, wrote a memoir about him and his family in 1994. Please hit that subscribe button if you like my channel. See you next time. Bye bye.